Alright, so we don't have time for it, but I do want to say again that when we persuade someone, we might move through these sets of ideas: value, problem, answer, and meaning. This is a good pattern, and it's the pattern we are practicing, although in your life you may find another pattern that works for you. For now, we're looking specifically at this value part. Martin Luther King is trying to persuade some people that have a very different point of view and at high social cost, right? So he needs to lay the groundwork of why his opinion matters. And he does that, as we saw, with this idea that he is a person of good manners, that he is a Christian just like his readers, and that he is a human just like his readers. What I want to point out, though, is that Martin Luther King is being clear and specific as he writes. We've said writing is thinking, and Martin Luther King does that. He thinks about his readers, what they care about. And then we should be clear and specific. And Martin Luther King accomplishes this with names and numbers, and then with metaphors and parallelism. And I strongly recommend that you think about these things in your writing. Names and numbers are solid. People like names and numbers. If I say I teach English, that's okay. If I say I teach English at Yenta University, you might be a little more interested. Suddenly there's a name, there's an institution, there's somebody else who trusts me. It makes you more likely to trust me. And again, with numbers, you get a better sense of scale. I might say, I teach English to hundreds of university students at Yenta University. And in Korea and Guatemala and in the United States, I've taught thousands of students at different age groups. So now you might have a better feel for how valuable what I say is going to be based on those names and numbers. And that's what Martin Luther King does. When he writes about how he was invited, he uses the names of the organizations that he's involved in. He uses the number of the organizations. So the reader gets a sense of scale, a sense of how much pressure is on him in this invitation to come. And he does come. In the same way, when he writes examples from the Bible, he uses those names that the people will know. The readers are all familiar with those stories. They recognize those names, and they immediately see the example, they immediately see the point that Martin Luther King is trying to make, that these people, from what we care about and what we know, are drawn in this way, and he, in the same way, Martin Luther King, is also drawn to do what he is doing. Names and numbers establish credibility. In the third paragraph, Martin Luther King breaks into metaphor and parallelism. He uses the metaphor of a network. He uses the metaphor of a garment. He uses parallelism, like injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. There's a nice bit of rhetoric there, and we've looked at this in the past with something like Emerson, when he says, in Emerson's writing, he says, the hand is fingers, just like you and I are human beings to help each other. So Emerson uses the metaphor of a hand. Martin Luther King uses the metaphor of a garment or a network. In one way, this writing style is the weakest, right? There's nothing solid that you and I can grab onto. When I say Yenta University, or when I say 100,000, suddenly in your mind you can grab that. Parallelism and metaphor are a little bit different. So in one way, it's the weakest paragraph. In another way, it is the strongest. It is put in the right place. The best way I can explain this is a bicycle. When you start riding your bicycle, you have to really push on the pedals. You need to put a lot of solid weight on those pedals to get the bicycle going. But once you have picked up speed, right, now you don't have to push as hard. Now you just have to push gracefully. You have to keep balance, keep your line, and each push will take you farther than those first pushes took you at all, right? So Martin Luther King transitions here in a nice way so that what might have been the weakest writing is suddenly very powerful, very elegant, and we can all feel it pulling on our heartstrings as human beings.